Um, yeah, this was actually pretty easy to find. I was glad.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool.
it I've seen this cover before. This cover was always intriguing to me. Something about the face of that
Mhm.
dragon and its like spindly fingers.
Yeah, that's neat.
But he doesn't draw the dragon like this in the book. It's got more of like a dog face, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, he might have done this like 2 years later because originally what happened was um, this was all published in Epic Illustrated as like
Right.
installments of maybe 8 pages at a time. So then they decided to make it into the full graphic novel. And so I think he penciled and inked this himself. Terry Austin didn't ink the cover. So it's
Oh,
also
okay.
close to probably how he drew at the time.
Right. Yeah, I guess that makes
Yeah.
sense because yeah, then you turn the page and then there's like probably there's like a second cover. I'm not sure if they use that in Epic or what, but
Yeah, no, that wouldn't have made it. Epic, we always had like painted covers by like John Bolton or it's kind of they were kind of going for almost a heavy metal magazine sort of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
uh is that where you first like discovered the story? It was an Epic or was it in the
Yeah, it was
actual
an
like
epic.
collection?
It was an Epic Illustrated, and I was probably right around the time where the Superman 2 movie came out.
Okay. So you were already kind of like were you already into comics yet or not?
I mean, I liked comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I liked comics since I was a little kid,
Uh-huh.
and my dad was always kind of into them, so I was into them.
So what was it? So why did you pick this one out of all the books you could have picked?
I just remember the inking, Terry Austin's inking standing out, and I thought this was, I was used to superhero comics and
Yeah, of
and
course.
stuff that was published in Epic Illustrated was, like I said, a little bit more. It was a little closer to Heavy Metal magazine, where a lot of painted comics, and this was kind of a cross between comic books because of the inking style and the drawing style and maybe something else that isn't superheroes. And I was like, oh, there's a whole world outside of Batman and Superman, and plus at that stage, this is even before Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Everybody liked
Right.
ninjas, and so it's kind of badass in that sense.
Yeah, because this was 82, I think this says that it was first published in Epic. And then this came
Yeah,
out in 88. So you got Carl Potts, so he penciled, uh, wrote and created it, and then Denny
yeah,
O'Neil came in and like polished up the script, I guess.
probably, yeah.
And
And
then
then
you got
Terry
Terry
Austin inking,
Austin
and
inking, yep.
Marie Severin on
Yeah.
magnificent colors,
Yeah.
fully painted blue line colors.
And James Novak on the letters. So it's yeah, it looks like markers for a lot of it, but then
It was what they did was they would print the page in blue line, similar to how people ink in blue
yeah.
line,
Hmm.
and then have a, a page of acetate over it with the actual ink.
Right.
So she probably use Dr. Martin's dyes to color it,
These
which
pups.
everybody kind of colored all the comics back then. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that stuff. And then you just keep flipping and making sure that everything is, properly kind of lining up. And
Aligned, yeah.
yeah, so it was like, that's what, I mean, you would use people would do color guides and give them to the printer and just hope that and pray that the color guides would work for the printer, and the printer
Right.
would follow them. Because, but in this case, it's exactly as she colored it, and it was probably one of the first blue line color jobs.
Yeah, that's wild. So this is kind of an interesting story. So it kind of opens with this like old man, old old like swordsman, master swordsman, sitting and being a hermit in the middle of nowhere in Japan and sees this like, younger guy trying to prove himself riding through, and this dragon comes up. But dragons in this story are like these peaceful creatures. The design is
Yeah,
interesting because it's like a cross between like a Chinese dragon and like a Western dragon, where it's got the long
Yeah,
like
I'm sure.
serpenty body, but then also like wings and stuff, and like a rattlesnake tail. It looks like,
Yeah, it's really cool.
but yeah, they're
Carl
like
Potts was pretty young there. He used to work for Neil Adams, I think, when he first broke in at Continuity.
yeah.
One of the crust bunker guys, and then quickly went over to Marvel. He was my editor on um, Alien Legion.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Larry Stroman was penciling the book then, and Mark Farmer had just left the series. Mark Farmer was like this amazing inker who's mostly famous for inking Alan Davis on
Oh,
everything Alan was doing, and he also inked Dale Keown's Hulk for a long time.
oh, he's
But I
responsible
mean, the
for
guy's
that. Huh?
magnificent. Yeah, he's like an. I mean, he's in his own class as far as like inking goes. And I was pretty new to inking, and Larry Stroman's pencils at the time. I haven't seen his pencils in a long time, but at the time his pencils were very painterly. They were like very, yeah, you can't even say sketchy because they're just like light marks, and it felt ethereal. So to ink something that delicate and beautiful and be kind of clumsy with the inks, and then actually, especially after coming after someone like Mark Farmer, and man, it was a real wake up call as far as where I was, talent wise. But it's like trial by fire.
Yeah.
I
How did they turn out? Were
retrospect,
you
if I
were
was
you
the
happy
editor, I
with
would
how it
never.
turned out?
No, I mean,
No.
I doubt Larry was either, but Larry's such a nice guy. He put up with it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I had met Larry. He lived in New York, and I was like on and off living in New York at the time. So
Mhm.
I got to know him. So maybe that helped him not try
Yeah.
to strangle me.
Right. This fucking kid. We ruined it all.
Well, I remember my father looking at the pages and looking at my inks and he just shaking his head, going, "Oh my God, you're butchering these pages."
Oh no. Thanks,
Yeah,
Dad.
it's the truth. You need somebody with those hard truths.
You do. You really do. It's important. You just having somebody saying, "Oh, good job, son," and patting you on the head, all the time isn't
Oh yeah, no,
isn't
that doesn't help.
necessarily helpful.
No, not
Um,
really.
these rocks are interesting on here because they're almost like cloud-like, and there are rock formations like that.
Yeah, I guess they're
Um,
really smoothed over by water.
yeah, yeah. What do you always say that Neil Adams said to you? Like, think like the thing that you're drawing. Like, think like a rock. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, make lightning. Yeah, feel that energy of lightning while you're inking it, and it'll transfer into the inks. And same thing
Right.
with rocks or tree branches. They're craggy. And coincidentally, Terry also worked. He was like Dick Giordano's assistant prior to really making a tremendous breakthrough in comics. And Dick Giordano worked very closely with Neil. So like
Mm,
you can tell all the Superman, Muhammad Ali backgrounds are done by
yeah.
Terry.
Oh, is that right?
So yeah, he's
Like
very.
even
I mean,
pencils?
if you look at it again, you go, oh my God, you're right. Yeah, that's a Terry Austin line.
Oh,
But
wow.
Terry has very. I mean, he's a huge influence on me artistically.
Yeah.
I really loved Jeff D. His work for that early Dungeons and Dragons, the modules and the books like
Yeah.
Demigods and Deities, and Jeff D must have been really studying Terry Austin, so that when I finally saw Terry Austin's work, I was just blown away. Terry Austin
Yeah.
was like such a marquee talent at Marvel that Jim Shooter said that if he inked a cover, it didn't matter who the penciler was, if he was inking a cover, and by the way, comics were selling so many more copies than they now. But if he inked a
What?
cover, it would boost the sales by about like 30,000 copies.
Oh, I believe
So he
it.
was just killing it. He was just killing. He just had an aesthetic that, for that time, just went over like gangbusters. He was the man.
That's wild. Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't. It was probably like the beginnings of really a lot of cross hatching and stuff creeping into comics. The way that the way that he does it, because he does this sort of like mesh style where
yeah.
he follows the contour.
Mhm. And it's hard to say. I don't know. Like, it'd be interesting to hear what Carl Potts has to say about the pencils, because the way Terry would ink John Byrne is nothing the way John Byrne intended it to be inked. He wasn't. They supposedly weren't simpatico, but they were such a hit. You can't argue with success. And like
No.
in John Byrne's world, he would have preferred someone like Tom Palmer, who is a much brushier approach, because John was kind of going for a Neil Adams thing. Um,
Right.
and so, um, yeah, Terry's just a whole different animal, a whole different beast, and how he interprets pencil lines is very unique. So it could have been similar with anyone he inked. Like there's an issue. It's funny to look at the contrast. There's a Frank Miller issue of Daredevil, and this is fairly early Frank Miller. Um, and he's primarily inked by Klaus Janson, and then all of a sudden there's an issue with finishes by Terry, and it's it's super cool. It's the issue that says "No More Mr. Nice Guy," and Daredevil's holding up like a revolver towards the viewer on the cover.
Right.
But it's a really cool issue. It's so different than what you are used to.
Yeah, they're both such unique inkers.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
couldn't
I
be
don't think
further
I've
from
ever
each
seen
other.
them side by side. So
Yeah.
love this head.
And this stuff, I mean, this is what I guess this style of storytelling from Carl is like, you know, every panel he's putting in 100%. Like if
Yeah.
it has a background, that background is a fully realized thing, and I just that was incredible. You have to forgive my robot butler over here. Maybe I'll try to. Oh, there he's shutting off. Thank God. Saves our life with the dog, but man, the thing's
The
loud.
future, man.
Yeah, my AI custodian.
Yeah, he really does. Like he doesn't skimp on any backgrounds. I mean, he knows when it's time to give like let the viewer rest their eye with some, open spaces and
Mhm.
stuff, but
Yeah, I
not
mean,
much.
I always love the open panel, nothing on the background. Like you can see that in the top. You can see that
Yep.
on the next page. He gives the eye a little bit room to breathe, like on the
Hmm.
lower left hand panel on the next page.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of room to breathe and open things up, and it's necessary. And why not? Because it's a graphic medium. You should be able to use everything at your disposal.
Yeah. And then he'll just go all out, and I love these like the foreground silhouette elements too, that he'll put in here to give it depth.
Yeah, look at those shapes. Like you kind of blur your eyes. It's just it just adds to the chaos of the whole thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, this
know?
story is interesting. So, like, it doesn't really explain why, but this group of monks all of a sudden decided they're going to start training the peaceful dragons to be bad and, kill people.
Well, it's kind of Game of Thrones. This predates
Yeah,
Game of Thrones too. And if you think about it, George Martin, huge comic book fan at the time, he
absolutely.
definitely read this.
Oh,
It
yeah.
definitely influenced him. You have in the Game of Thrones, they're training the dragons, and they're using them. Whoever has the dragons has the power, and this is a
Hmm.
similar story.
But they decide they're going to go to this is like feudal Japan, end of it, I guess this is like 1800s, so they're early
Yeah,
1800s, so
Native
they're
Americans in
opening
the
up.
story. Yeah,
Yeah, and they're going to go to these monks decide they're going to go to America and take over America, this new land, that's opening up.
yeah. Why not? Right, right,
Why
Chris.
not? So like half the monks are opposed to it, and half the monks are like, even though we're peaceful, fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah, take over America. Let's bring some dragons. It's
Yeah.
the way to do it. You know,
And
look
then
at that
one
bottom
moment,
panel. So great.
this one here.
Yeah, look at that great negative space on each side. And
Yeah. Yeah. And the uplighting of it and the way it's just
yeah,
like
so cool.
that hatching is just
And
like perfectly rendered.
what's crazy is I don't know how many comics he had drawn prior to this, but it's very early on in his career, and he didn't draw too many comics after this either, um, which is
Yeah.
nuts. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I was reading a little
can
bit
you
about him.
see?
He moved
I was
on
gonna
to
say,
like
can you
games
see?
and stuff.
Yeah, no, he's great. It's one of the few comic book pages I have up in my studio. It's if you look at that ring light in over there, that
No
ring
way.
light is crossing over one of the pages from um, the book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You'll have to point out
And
which page
above
it
it's
is
a
once we
John
get to
Byrne.
it.
Actually, coincidentally, everything on that wall is by Terry Austin.
Is that right?
John Byrne Superman. There's an Arthur Adams Creature from the Black Lagoon page,
Ooh.
and then well, I guess the Brian Boland is kind of in the style of Terry Austin, but that's a small Brian Boland Mad Hatter trading card for DC. You can't
You
really
didn't
see
have
it.
those up when I was over at your house, I don't think. I never saw those.
Well, I put a partition in the office because the books are overflowing because there's like a library back there.
Yeah.
And when I say library, I mean, you know, a 4x6 amount of space. You know, it's tiny,
Yes.
but I have a little chair back there, a little reading lamp, and I sit back there, and it's like my only hiding place in the home.
Escape from the kid and the dog and the wife, huh?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, let me get this back up. The inking on this smoke and stuff too feels like Blueberry era, Jean Gerard Mobius inking too, which is interesting. I wonder if they had
Yeah,
similar influences or
he had to have been looking. I mean, what's interesting is like I said, he's so young in his career. There's probably
yeah.
so many different influences artistically, and it works, especially when you have such a cohesive inker like Terry, making everything conform and be uniform. Kind of it's like having an editor. But it's an inker. Back to, I mean, the colors in this are very powerful, and most colors, unless someone like Barry Windsor Smith was doing the color guides or Klaus Janson was doing the color guides, most of the times, the colors were, really not even secondary. You didn't even really see the colors in a comic
Yeah.
or feel them because they just, there was no like, oh, going for mood. That was rare. You might get a panel
Right.
that's all red for impact, but someone like Klaus Janson at the time was, coloring Daredevil. There's a reason. It's not just Frank Miller. It's not just his inking. It's also the coloring.
Yeah.
Everything came together. Perfect storm for,
Yeah.
for that creative team.
Definitely.
Propel, Frank even further. There's my favorite color, yellow.
Yeah, it certainly pulls your eye in on these little fight scenes.
Yeah, that's kind of there's like essence of Jim Starlin's storytelling.
Yep.
Jim Starlin was one of the first guys to really storytell in a way where it felt a little bit more like a movie. Like you'd see different reactions, and particularly if people were talking, you go, oh, that person's really saying that line because now his expressions changed. And before, comic books in a way are like uh, condensed children's books, like they're just scenes. And it wasn't until I think around this time where you really, I'm probably wrong, by the way. This is just me like babbling. Well,
Okay.
at this during these years where people were trying to make it a little bit more cinematic. So if
Uh-huh.
there was a moment of action, conversation, you might follow it in the same way you follow a film or a TV show.
Yeah, I remember you saying once to me, I was trying to figure out like if it was appropriate to kind of do that in a moment when I was working on something, and like keep the same shot and, you know, just move the character, you know, in the same background and stuff like that. And you're like, hey, it worked for Jim Starlin. You know? And I think I was just reading Dreadstar at that time, and I was like, okay, all right, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, Dreadstar was a big influence.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah, me too. But later in life, just like, you know, 2 years ago, it was the first time I read it.
Yeah, a great storyteller.
In the story, that one of the monks escapes to and has this like white dragon scale that you burn it and you get visions, and he gets the whole story of this kid who's like half white on this island, and, you know, fights and gets orphaned and becomes a ninja.
As one does.
Yep. And, you know, there's a girl ninja who is his, you know, adoptive sister, but also he falls in love with, and, you know, he's the one, he will end the corruption. So the vision is set.
Yeah. Also, really hard to find great reference. So, you know, look at that ship, the galley, and ropes. It's just beautiful. Like throwing that into the foreground as a foreground element.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Yeah.
I am guessing that the reason. What?
I was just say ships must be just. I've never had to draw old vessels like that, but getting the rigging right, you know, is got to be very difficult, especially when you get in close and having to know what all those little things do if you want to get it right.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have like a model, you know.
Yeah.
I remember these fight scenes because I was so into like Bruce Lee at the time, and Kung Fu, TV show Kung Fu with David Carradine. Whereas, you know, you watch a show like that now, the action is just it's almost in slow motion. It's so bad, you know.
Yeah.
But for me, that's the best you could get. It's like watching The Greatest American Hero TV show when I was a little kid. That's the closest you're going to get to a superhero TV show.
That's right.
You have to suffer through all the. Oh God, there's so much suffering to get to any sort of action in that series. You know?
So it really was. Oh man, it led you with the promise
suffer through about 45 minutes. Yeah, that last 10 minutes of action where he actually does something, you know.
Yeah.
But I did like who's the guy? Robert, what was his name? He was kind of like the FBI guy.
Yeah, he was a man.
I liked how he was just nonplussed by The Greatest American Hero. He could care less.
Yeah.
You know? He's like, I can use this to help my FBI investigations, but I almost prefer not to.
Yeah. He's embarrassed by him, like.
Yeah. It's like his dirty little secret.
So the peaceful monk hires with this gold medallion, hires a bunch of ninjas to go and stop the monks from bringing the dragons to America and getting them on these ships. The monks, I guess, hire the old man to kind of like be on the ship, and he thinks he doesn't know what they're doing. So the ninjas come and attack him, and you know, the half white, half Japanese ninja thinks that the old man killed his sister lover, but he didn't. She kills herself because she doesn't want to be captured.
Yeah, so Carl Potts is half Japanese,
Mm-hmm.
half I don't know what the other half, Caucasian of some kind of Caucasian race, but not sure. So kind of that's probably him in a sense. You know.
And then they load the biggest, baddest dragon on.
Your right hand is.
What's that
really
here?
made the impression on me. that page stopped me in my tracks, and I think it was the middle panel and below, the way that hand was inked with that. Is that a sword he's holding? I can't. It's a little blurry on this side. Oh no, so it's not that page.
Oh, this page?
It's close. It's coming up.
Oh,
But
okay.
I just remember thinking about it so clearly, going, how intense is that inking?
Yeah.
Oh, here comes my robots coming back with
Your
more
robot's
of
back, the
the
maid's back.
remnants of my dog. Yeah.
Watch out for your tail.
Yeah.
So this is a ship from America that was delivering some cargo to Japan. And since this guy's half Japanese, half Caucasian, he, takes off his ninja outfit and, pretends to be one of the crew because he looks like he could be from America, I guess.
I guess so.
I
Honestly, Chris, I haven't read the story since I was maybe a child.
Really?
I haven't gone back to it. Your guess is as good as mine.
Is this the hand you were talking about? Because that's some serious inking right there, too.
Yeah. That hand grabbing that stick, too.
Yeah. I wonder if that's screen tone underneath that. It must be. It looks like it.
Yeah, it is.
It's a pretty even texture.
Terry Austin used a lot. I mean, that's why I use all the Zipatones, because Terry was using Zipatone like crazy.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So it would have been, I guess it would have been the inker's job to put the screen tone down, yeah.
Yeah, so it was, because the originals, he just cut it out and slice it up with an X-Acto blade. Terry Austin used a lot. Bob Layton used a lot. Klaus Janson used a lot of Zipatone. All my favorites. So when I could start using digital zips after I scanned my original pages in, I was like, I went a little Zipatone crazy.
Yeah. You've mellowed on the zip a little bit now, though. You've moved into a next stage, I think, just recently. It seems like
maybe. I got so much flack from Joe Quesada about this. He can't stand Zipatone. So every time I would put zip on something, so maybe he beat it out of me.
Listen, if you stop doing something just because somebody says that it's not their taste every time, you're never going to do anything.
No, I mean, if it warrants it. Yeah, I think my style has changed a little bit, and the Zipatone was mostly used because, like I had mentioned, the color process was so weak that the inking was the most powerful asset on the finished art.
Yeah.
So it was great. It was a smart way to do it, and now you don't need to. The coloring's magnificent. You really don't need screens. You could just add a texture to one of the color layers digitally, of course. And achieve whatever effect you want.
Yeah, I think screens now are used more as like a nostalgia or they're good for texture. I mean, I love putting texture in my work, and if it adds something, if it can add depth and make sense, then I'm all for it.
Especially for black and white comics. It's,
for sure.
Crazy. I'd rather see black and white comics with the Zipatones and screen tones instead of solid gray tone colors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of that.
So the dragons are loose. They find a bunch of Native American camps, and they kill all the women and children.
Oh, thanks.
Not cool, man. Haven't they suffered enough?
Not yet.
No. And so the look at that face.
That's a great shot.
Isn't that
a great shot?
And then the use of the Zipatone as a shadow over the side of it.
Yeah. this might have been the
That's
page. I
beautiful.
don't know. I'll have to, you're gonna come by it, and then I'll have a big aha moment for myself. And but look at that. Look at him up in the tree. Like, watch
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, so he's gonna
A
join
ninja.
forces with
I think
them.
a ninja will use any means necessary for trickery.
How
There it
awesome
is
is
at
it to
last.
where
That
is it?
a whack panel. That's the panel.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, if I could get that page, like I'm not a huge art collector, but I would love to have that page.
You gotta look on Heritage and see who has it and track them
Yeah,
down.
that weapon is called a Manrik Gusari. I mean, I'm not my pronunciation's atrocious, but
Yeah.
I remember I was so intrigued with that panel. I'm like, I must discover what this weapon is.
Oh yeah, ninjas had
That's
the
something like,
coolest weapons.
yeah, that's something if you practice at home with, you definitely hurt yourself.
Oh, I mean, how would you even practice with it? Because you can't screw up. There's a blade, there's a point, there's like a heavy weight on the other
Yeah,
end.
no,
You'd have to
you
practice
mess
with
up
like a
there.
wooden one first or something.
Yeah.
But how
Look at him
cool is
shifting
it a
his foot.
story that has like a Native American war party and a ninja?
Exactly. See, I picked a real gem for you,
You
Chris.
did pick a real gem, man. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of these faces and these expressions are just awesome. The close-ups that they do.
Yeah. See, I don't do this enough in my work. Like those great foreground shapes that tell you, oh, that's a branch, we're in a forest. I mean, imagine that lower left-hand page or that one you pointed to without those things and how
Yeah.
flat the panel would look. And yet it's
Yeah.
just so easy to put something like that in there, and it gives the page so much more depth, and it,
Yeah.
it informs you more. Everything you draw should inform the reader of something, and
Yeah. I think
that's
about that a
informing the
lot
reader.
too.
So
You do it though.
go a long way
I
with
mean,
that.
I've got examples to point out for the next video.
Oh,
But you say you don't
I
do
need
it
a
enough,
mask.
is what you're saying.
No, I don't do it enough. Because I started out primarily inking. Every time I draw
Yeah.
something and I think I've drawn a good figure or a good background, the last thing I want to do is obscure it with a silhouette, or it just, to me, that's like an abomination. But for the sake, there's the page I have right there where your thumb is.
This
That's the
one?
page on my wall.
Oh
Yeah,
wow. I mean,
it's a great
yeah. I
page.
think the image of the wall on this is too blurry, but yeah, man.
Yeah,
I was
that's,
thinking about that, like how much I want to actually see these pages just in their black and white without the color like influencing
they're
it.
insane. The amount of time it must have taken both of them to draw these pages, I can't even imagine. There's so much detail.
Yeah. Like all the little tick marks
Just
in the leaves the leaves in the negative space.
yeah, the foliage, it's crazy.
You're the first time I think I ever saw like full like trees and things drawn in negative space, and like now I can see it in here too. I wonder if
It probably had an influence.
yeah, I wonder if you picked up on that like subconsciously.
Yeah.
But again, look at he's doing a lot of these foreground things. This is the only time I think that I've seen him bust like break the panel, and he breaks it from the top, which is interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, it's weird. But also it like draws you, everything's supposed to draw your eye. So
Right.
the way that character he's looking through the branches,
Mm-hmm.
that spear or pike or whatever you call that thing, forces you into the next panel and
Yeah.
leads the eye and cuts you right in on the right hand side to the people who were the most important.
Yeah.
Jeff Johnson and Rob Liefeld, oddly enough, really have that S pattern of storytelling down. So,
Yeah.
it's always like create a reverse S on the page
Mm-hmm.
to kind of get you onto the next page. So you start one area and you should spin all the way down. Larry
Right, the
Stroman also.
zigzag. Hmm.
Paris Cullins used to talk about that. Larry Stroman.
Yeah. You can feel it on here with the
Yeah, I
way
don't
that
think
they
anyone
started
did pages.
to do the Dutch angles too. Like even the angle and the way that the trees are going kind of pull you down into this panel, you know?
Yeah, like look at these people. I'll take that page and the next one. Those are great.
Yeah, here again, that whatever it's called is breaking the panel to bring you down. But it totally draws your eye into the last panel and you miss all this beautiful dead tree action.
Yeah, which probably took forever. Yeah, I remember hearing hearing from the guys that like when Barry Smith and Bernie Wrightson were kind of coming up, they were
Hmm.
putting so much work into pages. It kind of changed the whole dynamics of comics. And as you know, as a comic book artist, page is an
Yeah,
easy thing to draw per day. And these guys were young guys, and money. They're not thinking about money. They just want to make the coolest comic possible. So it probably took them a couple of days to do a page in some cases.
sure.
But man, it changed the whole sphere of comics after that, because before you just get basic comics, and
Yeah,
and then
because
all of a
I'm
sudden
not
this
sure where
massive amount of detail.
Barry started doing his initial work, but Bernie would have been the first stuff that I know of Bernie's was stuff that was in like you know, like Journey into Mystery and House of Secrets and stuff, where I wouldn't have been drawing a full like 20-page issue every month. It would have been drawing like, 10, right? So he would have
And
had
same
the
thing
time to
like
do it.
yeah, Barry Smith was like filling in. He was such a young guy when he started
Yeah.
at Marvel, and he was emulating Jack Kirby and John Buscema, but mostly Kirby at the
Hmm.
time, and he was pretty weak as far as an artist goes. And then for whatever reason, even though he was, you know, even by the standards then, he was pretty terrible. They put him on Conan, and by the time he left Conan and did like Red Nails, I mean, he was a whole different artist. He had just manifested his full power, and then I think he just got fed up. Like I mean, if you've ever read the books, he has two books, Opus 1 and 2.
Hmm.
I mean, it's sometimes it's hard to read because you want to turn the page and see the next page of glorious art the guy's made. But if you actually read about his life and his point of view and how he sees life, the man
Yeah.
is definitely a true artist. Like he just sees things, experiences things differently and beautifully. So by the time he was nearing his end with Conan, he was just like, look, I can't work under these constraints, these company constraints. I want to make something magnificent. So he started his own company, a publishing company called Gorblimey Press, and he would just put out posters or sets of posters or bookmarks or mini prints, and just making his living that way. I guess he was doing some advertising art, but it was just that's that whole phase when it was the studio book with Bernie and
Yeah.
Michael Kaluta, Jeffrey Jones. At the time, he was Jeffrey Jones.
Hmm.
Um, those guys were all bouncing off each other and one upping each other. But
Yeah.
Barry, my
That's
God, I was just looking at a Barry, yeah, I was looking at a Barry Windsor Smith page on Facebook yesterday, and he's just incredible. And it
Yeah,
was
I haven't
beautiful to
really
see
gotten
where he
that deep.
started.
I haven't taken a deep dive into him yet. I really need to. The thing that always turned me off was like his faces for some reason. and and I don't know why
Oh,
that's just kept me away, but now I'm after reading Monster and, like
mhm.
seeing a lot of other stuff, I got to get into it again.
Monster was originally a Thing story.
It was a Hulk, wasn't it?
Was it a Hulk? It was one of them, and Marvel
One of
turned
those
it
guys.
down.
Yeah.
And so he kind of remastered the pages, and I guess it was probably the Hulk.
Yeah, it's a wild book. I mean, I would sat and looked
Oh
at
my God, look at
like
that.
doilies for a half an hour, you know? Look
You
at
know
that
what's
book.
crazy, Chris? I'm looking at that. I'm looking at that top panel, the big background panel,
Yeah, this reminds me of something you would draw.
and well, that's what I just reminded me of a page of Canary, like
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the the
And
Hulk
this too,
character
even
is
the
like
colors.
walking through something almost identical. It's
Yeah.
almost it's like very bizarre. It is. I have the light coming in the same way. Everything. That's nuts.
Let
That's
me
crazy to
let me
see.
find it. I have it bookmarked. I know what page
It's
you're talking
probably
about.
the first or second issue.
Yeah, I got two here. Let me
There's like
see. Oh, that's end.
I think that's a little further in.
Yeah.
Definitely
It was like a
creepy.
flashback, wasn't it?
But yeah, it's. I think it's a flashback. He's holding his gun.
I think it's the
He
maybe
hadn't
this is
quite
first
yet
issue.
stumbled. Might be the first. I don't know. Yeah, because each one of those Dark Horse issues are two issues combined in the
Yeah.
Comixology books. And I forgot the way Scott ultimately decided to tell the story. Like sometimes maybe it's a few more pages. I think it's a couple pages before this.
Is that it?
No,
Oh.
you'd see it and then you'd go, yeah, that's it right there.
Where
Very
where?
similar.
Yeah.
What you're pointing to, there's a little lag on your screen.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, it is
I
very
mean, there's
similar.
similarities. If you look at it,
Even the
if it was in
direction.
black and white, I think they're very similar. That's nuts. I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's really crazy. If you haven't even looked at this in like so many years.
No, I haven't seen the book I mean, I have the graphic novel, but I haven't opened it in probably,
Yeah.
15 years.
Well, the gist of the end of the story is they kill the bad guys, and now he's got a couple dragons, and he's going to go where nobody is going to find them except for, now at this point, every little last piece of the country has been colonized. So
Lord.
guess all the dragons died out. But yeah, this is cool too. It's got these pictures of them at the end.
It's Denny.
Marie just did everything, didn't she?
Yeah, she was. She's quite the artist and quite the figurehead there at Marvel in the bullpen for the longest time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool, man.
Look
Well,
at
thanks
that.
for pointing this one out.
Cool. Yeah, you're doing all sorts of fun stuff, Chris. You're making comics fun. You're like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna go in this direction, and that's what comics are all about.
Yeah, they're supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
If they're not
You're
fun,
doing
what's the point?
yeah.
I mean, even for the
Yeah,
people creating them.
yeah, your stuff is always exciting to look at. There's always like, I did not expect that. I didn't see it that way, and that's what the graphic medium when it's. Look at me right now. Look, I'm like Barry Windsor Smith with the lighting on my face there.
Yeah.
Watch out. Yeah.
Well, that's
But,
awesome. Well, thanks for sharing
yeah,
that one, man.
that's what. Oh, you're welcome.
I told you
I
it
didn't even
doesn't
know we
take
had
just a
started.
half an hour to talk about this shit.
Yeah.
Once you get going on the stuff that you hadn't thought about in a while, you start thinking about it.
I can't wait till my wife gets home and I show her that page too, and see what she thinks. That's so weird.
I'm going to wrap up this episode just by saying see you later. And people can find you on Instagram at Urban Barbarian. And then where else? All over the damn place.
It's always Urban Barbarian, so it's Instagram and Twitter on Urban Barbarian. My Facebook page is I don't have a page. I'm just a normal, profile, but it's open, so you can follow that too. I think the friend thing is capped out, but those are the three platforms.
You can't have any more friends, Dan. Sorry.
I know I'm not allowed any more friends. You made it just in time, Chris.
It's only been a couple years.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks,
Well,
man.
thanks for having me, Chris. And I look forward to your next Facebook or Instagram or Twitter post. So.
Thanks.